The big space station, called Helios, shook hard. Bright lights flashed on the control screens. Outside the windows, things that used to be part of the station floated away. The people inside were not like humans. They were slim and moved gently. They looked very scared. Their home was being attacked. An old leader, his face showing deep worry, watched the screens. Enemy ships, tough and mean-looking, kept hitting the station. The station's protective shields were weak and flickering like a light about to go out. "We need help," the old leader said, his voice quiet but full of pain. "Send the call. Send it everywhere. Ask anyone who can hear. ... Please save us." The young officer, his hands shaking, pressed buttons. He sent a special message out into the huge, dark space. It was a cry for help. A desperate shout that said, "We are dying. Please come." He sent it as far as the machines could send it, hoping someone, anyone, would hear it far away. Deep in the quiet darkness of space, far from any sun, another ship moved. This ship was not smooth and shiny like the station under attack. This ship was called Odyssey's Resolve. It was built strong and thick like a rock. It looked like it had been in many fights, with marks and dents on its dark gray sides. Inside the ship, a man named Greg Olson sat in the big chair. He was the captain. He looked calm, but his eyes watched everything carefully. A woman named Laura Diaz stood beside him. She was his second in command. She watched the screens, showing the empty space around them. Suddenly, a machine beeped loudly. "Captain," a young man at a screen said, "we caught something. It's a signal. Very weak. It's a distress call. Lots of different kinds of voices all mixed together. They're screaming for help." Greg leaned forward. "Put it on speaker. Let's hear it." The bridge filled with sounds, strange voices, speaking languages no one on the ship knew. But the feeling was clear. Fear, pain, a terrible need for someone to come. Underneath the alien cries, another sound was buried. The harsh, angry sound of human voices shouting orders. Laura's face tightened. Human voices. Attacking them. Who would do that? Greg listened to the fear in the alien calls. He listened to the human anger mixed in. Thought about his own ship, his own people. Humans came from a dangerous world. They were strong. They could live through things that would kill others. Because of this, many aliens were afraid of humans. They called humans Deathworlders. They thought humans were like monsters. "Plot a course," Greg said, his voice firm and low. Laura looked surprised. "Captain, going there? It could be bad. If those aliens see us coming after being attacked by other humans, they will only see more Deathworlders. They will be terrified of us too. They might even shoot at us." Greg looked at the screen showing where the signal came from. He saw the little dots that were probably enemy ships around the station. "They asked for help, Laura," he said. "Anyone who could hear them? We heard them. We are close enough. We have the strength to help. Cannot ignore that cry. Just because they might fear us? Set the course. Fast speed." Laura looked at Greg for a moment, then nodded. "Setting course. Fast speed." She gave the orders. The big engines of the Resolve began to hum louder, building power. The ship turned in the darkness. It aimed towards the distant, frightened signal. Deigned. With a strange, twisting feeling inside the ship, it jumped. It vanished from the quiet space and flew faster than light towards the battle. Back on the shaking Helios station, the old leader felt a tiny spark of hope. "The call? Someone answered the call? They are coming," he whispered. People around him looked up, a little hope touching their scared faces. "Who is coming?" asked an alien woman, her voice thin with fear. The young officer looked at his screen. His eyes got very wide. His face turned pale. His hands started to shake again, worse than before. It's a ship," he stammered. "It just appeared near us. ... It's... where it's..." He couldn't say the word. He pointed at the screen. A picture appeared. It wasn't like the attacker's ships. It was bigger. It looked like a giant piece of dark metal shaped for war. It had powerful engines glowing bright. It looked incredibly strong and very dangerous. The old leader stared. The tiny spark of hope in his chest froze, then turned into cold, hard ice. The alien woman made a small, terrified sound. "Deathworlders, The old leader breathed, the word full of dread. Oh no, Deathworlders heard our call. Deathworlders are the ones who came. On the bridge of the Odyssey's resolve, the view changed. The quiet darkness was gone. Now the windows showed chaos. The beautiful Helios station was hurt, sparking in places. Round it buzzed smaller, mean warships. The attackers. Human warships. Battle stations. Greg Olson ordered, his voice calm but strong. The lights on his bridge changed to a warning red. People moved fast to their places, weapons powered up. Shields glowed stronger around the resolve. They had arrived at the fight. The Deathworlders were here. The beautiful space station, Helios, felt like a fragile bird caught in a storm. Its people huddled inside, their thin bodies trembling. They had just seen a tiny spark of hope. Someone had answered their desperate call for help. But now, staring at the view screen, that hope turned to pure ice in their hearts. The ship that had appeared near them was enormous. It wasn't sleek like their own vessels, or even sharp like the attackers' ships. It was big, blocky, and covered in thick, dark metal plates. Scars and dents marked its surface, telling stories of past battles. Its engines glowed with a fierce, hot light. It looked incredibly strong, incredibly tough, and incredibly dangerous. Deathworlders, whispered the old leader, his voice shaking. The word felt heavy and cold. They heard us. Deathworlders came. Around him, the other aliens made soft sounds of pure fear. The young officer who had sent the call looked like he might be sick. They had begged for saviors, and monsters had arrived. On the bridge of the Odyssey's resolve, Captain Greg Olson saw the chaos clearly. The attacker ships buzzed around the wounded station like angry insects. They were human ships, no doubt about it. Their design was different, meaner, but the basic shape was human. Greg felt a knot of anger in his stomach. Humans were attacking these people. Open a channel to the station, Greg ordered, his voice calm but firm. Broadcast on all common frequencies. Translate into every language we have. A moment later, Greg's voice, deep and steady, filled the communication lines. Helios Station, this is Captain Greg Olson of the Earth vessel Odyssey's Resolve. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Pete, we are here to help you. He hoped the translation was clear. On Helios Station, the old leader flinched as Greg's voice came through the speakers. It sounded so calm, so controlled. To the frightened aliens, that calmness felt terrifying. It sounded like the quiet focus of a hunter, not a friend. The old leader couldn't bring himself to answer. What could he say to a Deathworlder? Suddenly, the communication screen flickered. A new face appeared. This man looked hard. His eyes were cold and metal parts gleamed on one side of his face. He wore a dark uniform, unlike Greg's. Olson, the man sneered. His voice was rough and full of contempt. This is Commander Marcus Vale. You don't belong here. Turn your rust bucket around and crawl back to whatever hole you came from. This station and its weaklings belong to Sovereign Alara now. Leave or we will break you. Greg didn't blink. Commander Vale, he replied, his voice still calm but firm. Your attack stops now. Stand down your forces. Vale laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. Or what, you and your little crew will stop us. You're just another pack of Deathworlder scavengers. Get lost. The screen went dark as Vale cut the connection. Greg looked at Laura. He won't listen. He sees us as rivals, not rescuers. He turned back to the main screen. One of Vale's smaller attack ships, a frigate, was moving towards a badly damaged section of the station. Its docking bay doors were opening, ready to launch boarding shuttles filled with soldiers. If those soldiers got inside that weak section, the station would fall quickly. Helm, Greg said, his voice sharp now. Bring us between that frigate and the station. Block its path. Right now, the pilot reacted instantly. The big engines of the Resolve roared. The massive ship, surprisingly quick for its size, surged forward. It didn't fire weapons, didn't make threats. It simply moved its huge bulk directly into the path of the attacking frigate. On the frigate, alarms blared. The pilot yelled, "Collision course. That big ship is blocking us." He slammed the controls, trying to turn away at the last second. The Resolve filled the frigate's view screen, a wall of dark, scarred metal. It stopped perfectly, positioning itself like a shield between the frigate and the vulnerable part of the station. The frigate's boarding shuttles couldn't launch without hitting the Resolve's thick hull. On Helios Station, the aliens watched in stunned silence. The huge Deathworlders ship had just placed itself directly in harm's way. It wasn't attacking the station, it was ... protecting it. The old leader stared, unable to understand. Why would monsters do that? On the bridge of the Resolve, Greg watched the frigate scramble away. He opened a channel directly to Vale's flagship. Vale, Greg said, his voice echoing in the quiet bridge. Its aggression ends now. We are here. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the frigate Vale had commanded suddenly spun around. Its weapons glowed bright red. It fired everything it had directly at the Odyssey's Resolve. Bright flashes of light erupted as lasers and explosive shells slammed into the Resolve's shields. The big ship shuddered slightly under the impacts, but it held its position firmly. The shield glowed brightly where the weapons hit, absorbing the blasts. "Shields holding, Captain," Laura reported, her eyes fixed on her screens. "Minimal impact." "That frigate doesn't have the firepower to hurt us through the shields." Greg nodded. He hadn't fired back. He just watched the frigate pour its anger onto his ship's shields. He was a solid wall. He'd drawn a line. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were standing in the way of the attackers. The fight had begun, not because Greg started it, but because he refused to let Vale hurt the helpless any longer. The terrifying rescuers were making their stand. The space around Helios Station became a storm of light and noise. The attacking frigate kept firing at the Odyssey's Resolve. Bright flashes lit up the dark as weapons hit the human ship's shields. The Resolve shook slightly but held its place like a mountain. It didn't fire back yet. Inside the Resolve, Captain Greg Olson watched calmly. "Target that frigate's main engines," he ordered. "Disable it. Don't destroy it unless necessary." His weapons officer nodded. Two bright beams shot out from the Resolve. They hit the back of the smaller attacking ship precisely. The frigate's engines sputtered and died. It drifted away, powerless and dark. Commander Laura Diaz watched other enemy ships move. "Captain, 3 more vessels are breaking off from the station. They're coming towards us. Looks like heavy cruisers." Greg nodded. "Bring our main guns online. Focus fire on the lead ship. Helm, prepare evasive pattern Delta." The Resolve's big weapons glowed with power. The fight began in earnest. The enemy cruisers fired first. Big energy blasts slammed into the Resolve shields. The ship shook harder this time. Alarms beeped. "Shields down to 80%, called an officer. "Minor damage on deck 4, sealed off," reported another. "Return fire," Greg said. The Resolve's main guns roared. Huge bolts of energy smashed into the lead enemy cruiser. Its shields flared brightly, then failed. The energy tore into its hull, ripping open metal. The cruiser spun wildly, trailing smoke and debris. "Nice hit," Laura said. Second cruisers launching fighters. Small, fast ships poured out of the second enemy cruiser. They swarmed towards the Resolve like angry bees. "Point defense turrets. Engage," Laura commanded. All around the Resolve, smaller guns started firing rapidly. Bright lines of tracer fire filled the space near the ship. Enemy fighters exploded, one after another in quick flashes. Meanwhile, a man named Ethan Moore worked frantically at a science station. He was studying the enemy soldiers visible on the station cameras. "Captain," Ethan called out, "I'm seeing something. Those soldiers boarding the station. They're human, yes, but they're changed. See the metal parts on their arms, legs, and the way they move? Too fast, too strong. They've been augmented, made into machines almost." Greg frowned. "Augmented? Can we find a weakness?" Ethan pointed at his screen. "Look here, the power source for those metal limbs, ... It seems to be a pack on their backs. It's glowing faintly blue, then it looks unstable. A strong energy pulse near that pack might overload it, maybe even cause it to explode." Greg looked at Laura. "Ask that to the boarding teams. Target the power packs." Laura spoke quickly into her communicator. "All teams, listen up. Target the glowing packs on the enemy soldiers' backs. Energy pulses work best. Aim for the packs." Down on Helios Station, the fight was terrifying. The attacking soldiers, their bodies mixed with metal, moved with frightening speed. They smashed through doors and fired powerful weapons. The station's defenders, thin and delicate, fell back quickly. They were no match for these augmented humans. Suddenly, a section of the station wall exploded inward. Not from the attackers. This was a controlled blast. 3 armored shapes crashed through the hole. They were humans from the Resolve. Commander Laura Diaz led them. Her team moved fast, but carefully. They fired precise shots from their rifles. Bright blue energy bolts hissed through the air. An augmented soldier turned towards them. He raised a heavy weapon. Laura fired. Her shot hit the glowing blue pack on his back. There was a sharp crackle, then a small explosion. Soldier screamed and fell, smoke rising from his ruined pack. Target the packs. Laura yelled to her team. Keep moving. We need to reach their commander. They pushed forward, firing at the blue glows. More augmented soldiers fell, their enhancements turning against them. Inside the station's main control room, the old alien leader and the young officer, Teak, watched the battle on screens. Fear was thick in the air. They saw the terrifying Deathworlders fighting the other terrifying humans. Explosions shook the room. They saw Laura's team fighting their way through a corridor. Then, the screen showed a hallway near the station's nursery. A group of very young aliens and their caretakers were huddled in a corner, trapped. 2 augmented soldiers spotted them. The soldiers raised their weapons. Suddenly, Laura Diaz appeared on the screen. She saw the children. Without hesitation, she jumped in front of them. Her armored body blocked the line of fire just as the soldiers fired. Bright energy bolts slammed into her chest and shoulder. Her armor sparked and smoked. She staggered back but didn't fall. She fired back quickly, hitting one soldier's power pack. It exploded. The other soldier ducked for cover. Laura stood firm, shielding the cowering alien children with her body. She yelled something to her team. They moved forward, driving the remaining soldier back. In the control room, Teak stared at the screen. He saw the Deathworlder soldier, the terrifying human, deliberately put herself in harm's way. She protected the weakest ones. She took hits meant for them. The old leader saw it too. His eyes widened slightly. He looked from the screen showing the powerful Resolve fighting in space to the screen showing Laura protecting the children. A small, confused thought flickered in his mind. Maybe not all monsters were the same? Laura checked her armor. Just a scratch, she said into her communicator, though her shoulder throbbed. Team, push on. Vale is close. We end this now. She glanced back at the frightened alien children, gave them a quick nod she hoped looked reassuring, and then moved forward again, leading her team deeper into the station, towards the enemy commander. The battle raged on, but a tiny seed of doubt about the Deathworlders had been planted. The fight inside the station was fierce. Commander Laura Diaz led her team down a wide hallway. Sparks flew from broken panels. Smoke made the air thick. Ahead they saw heavy doors. Guards in dark armor stood there. These were Vale's best soldiers, even more metal on them than the others. Their eyes glowed red behind their helmets. Vale is behind those doors, Laura said, her voice tight. Her shoulder hurt where the blast had hit earlier, but she ignored it. We need to get through. Remember the packs? Her team spread out. They fired bright blue energy bolts. The enemy guards moved fast, too fast. They dodged shots and fired back with powerful weapons that made the floor shake. One human soldier from Laura's team cried out and fell, hit in the leg. Cover him, Laura yelled. She fired at a guard rushing towards them. Her shot missed the glowing blue pack on his back. He slammed into her. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. Metal fists struck her armor. She felt the blows through the padding. She kicked him away and fired again. This time she hit the pack. It exploded. The guard fell. More guards came. Laura's team fought hard. They worked together. One would distract a guard, another would aim for the pack. Slowly, they pushed the guards back towards the big doors. Finally, the last guard fell. The hallway was quiet except for the crackle of sparks and the groans of the wounded. Laura hit the door controls. Nothing happened. Locked, she said. Breach it. Her team placed small charges around the doorframe. Boom, the doors blew inward. Laura charged through first, her weapon ready. Inside was a large control room. Screens covered the walls, showing the space battle and parts of the station. Standing in the middle was Commander Marcus Vale. He turned slowly. He wasn't wearing a helmet. Half his face was twisted metal. A cruel smile touched the human part of his lips. A large glowing blue pack hummed on his back. Well, well, Vale sneered. The Deathworlders' pet dog. Come to bite me, Laura? Didn't answer. She raised her weapon. Vale moved. He wasn't just fast, he was a blur. He crossed the room in a flash. His metal fist smashed Laura's weapon from her hands. The force sent pain shooting up her injured arm. He grabbed her by the throat with his human hand and lifted her off the ground. She choked, kicking uselessly. Pathetic Vale spat. You think you're heroes? You're weak. It's like these bugs you protect. Sovereign Alara offers strength. Real power. We left Earth's weakness behind. On the screen behind Vale, Laura saw the Odyssey's resolve battling enemy ships. It looked strong. It looked like home. Laura gasped, struggling. We ... protect ... she choked out. Vale laughed. You protect nothing. He drew a jagged knife made of dark metal. Say hello to your captain in hell. He raised the knife. One of Laura's soldiers lying wounded near the door lifted his arm. With his last strength, he fired his weapon. Act! The blue bolt hit Vale squarely in the glowing pack on his back. Vale froze. His eyes widened. A high-pitched whine came from the pack. Blue light flared under his armor. No. He screamed. Then the pack exploded. Not a small blast like the others. A huge eruption of blue fire and twisted metal. Vale vanished in the blast. The shockwave threw Laura across the room. She slammed into a console, the air knocked out of her. High above the station, on the bridge of the Iron Regent, Sovereign Alara watched a screen. It showed Vale's control room filled with smoke. Then the signal died. Her face, beautiful but cold as ice, twisted with fury. Her knuckles turned white on the armrest of her command chair. Vale ... gone. Her voice was dangerously quiet. Then it rose to a shriek. Olsen, that primitive worm. She slammed her fist down. He dares defy me. He dares stand against the Void Sovereigns. Activate the Regent's fury. Target the station core, and target that resolve. Burn them both to dust. On the Odyssey's resolve, alarms screamed like never before. Captain Greg Olsen gripped his chair. The main screen showed the massive Iron Regent turning. A huge section of its front hull opened like a monstrous mouth. Inside, energy gathered. It was blindingly bright, white and purple. It crackled with terrifying power. Sovereign weapon. Ethan Moore yelled from his station. Massive energy buildup. Readings are off the scale, targeting both us and the station's power core. One shot will tear the station apart and punch right through us. Greg saw the weapon charging. He saw the helpless station below them. Thousands of lives. He saw his own ship damaged but holding. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. He had seconds. He'd order the resolve to dodge. They might survive the edge of the blast, but the station would be vaporized. Everyone on it would die, or he could try to block it, try to shield the station. But that meant taking the full force of the Sovereign's most powerful weapon head-on. It would almost certainly destroy the resolve. The weapon glowed brighter. It was almost ready to fire. Greg made his choice. Helm. Full power to forward shields. Position us directly between that weapon and the station. Brace for impact. All power to shields. His voice was calm, but his heart hammered in his chest. The resolve surged forward. It moved like a shield, placing itself squarely in the path of the terrible beam aimed at the station's heart. On the Iron Regent, Alara saw it. Her lips curled in a vicious smile. Fool. Fire. On the resolve, Greg looked at the view screen filled with the charging weapon. He opened a channel. Ilara, he said, his voice clear and strong over the screaming alarms. You forgot what humans protect. The Regent's fury fired. Colossal beam of pure destruction ripped through space. It slammed into the Odyssey's resolve like a hammer hitting an anvil. The shields flared white-hot, then failed completely. The beam tore into the ship's thick armor. Metal screamed and vaporized, and the resolve shook violently like a leaf in a hurricane. Lights flickered and died. Its consoles exploded in showers of sparks. The sound was deafening. The beam kept pushing, burning through the ship, heading towards the station behind it. It seemed unstoppable. The terrible beam of light hit the Odyssey's resolve like a hammer smashing a rock. The ship shook violently. Every light on the bridge flickered and went out. Sparks flew from broken machines. The noise was deafening. Metal screaming. Explosions booming deep inside the ship. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Captain Greg Olson held onto his chair. The force of the blast threw him sideways. His head hit the console, pain exploding behind his eyes. He tasted blood in his mouth. Alarms wailed, but they sounded weak and distant under the roar of the dying ship. "Report," Greg yelled, his voice rough. He couldn't see much through the smoke and flashing emergency lights. "Forward shields gone." Laura Diaz's voice crackled over the internal comms. She was somewhere else on the ship. "Hull breach on decks 1 through 5. Massive damage. Engine power failing." Ethan Moore coughed. He was pulling himself up at his science station. His screen was cracked, but it still worked. He saw the terrifying truth. The enemy beam was still pushing. It had broken through the ship's thick armor and was burning deeper. Like a hot knife through butter, it was cutting towards the ship's main power core. And beyond that, the helpless station. "It's still coming." Ethan shouted, his voice filled with panic. "It's burning through us. It'll hit the station core in seconds. We can't stop it." Greg felt cold. They had put themselves in the way. They had taken the hit, but it wasn't enough. The enemy weapon was too strong. The station and everyone on it was still going to die. His sacrifice would be for nothing. On the Iron Regent, Sovereign Alara watched her screen. She saw the big human ship broken and burning. She saw her weapons beam cutting through it. A cruel smile touched her lips. Victory was seconds away. Back on the Resolve, Ethan stared at his cracked screen. His mind raced. He remembered the unstable power packs on the enemy soldiers. He remembered the explosion when they were hit with energy. He looked at the readings of the enemy beam itself. It was pure, raw power, and it was flowing through the Resolve. "Captain Ethan!" screamed, a desperate idea forming. The reactor buffer, the emergency energy storage. It's designed to absorb surges. We can overload it, push all the energy from the beam back into the buffer, and then blast it right back down the beam's own path like an echo. Greg understood instantly. It was a crazy plan. It might blow up their own ship faster, but it was the only chance. Do it, Moore. Make it happen. Engineering, listen to Moore. All power to the reactor buffer now. Engineers deep in the damaged ship scrambled. Ignoring fires and falling debris, they rerouted power. They opened the massive valves of the emergency energy storage unit. Instead of trying to block the enemy beam, they let it pour in, like filling a bucket under a waterfall. The Resolve shuddered even harder. Lights flashed wildly. The sound changed from tearing metal to a deep, angry hum. The energy storage unit glowed brighter and brighter, hotter and hotter. "It's filling," Ethan yelled. "It's going to blow." "Now," Greg roared. "Send it back. Down the pipe." Ethan slammed his hand on the control. Engineers threw the final switches. The overloaded energy storage unit didn't just release the energy, it vomited it. A massive pulse of raw power, amplified by the Resolve's own systems, surged back along the path of the enemy beam. It traveled up the river of destruction that was still pouring from the Iron Regent. On the Iron Regent, Ilara's smile vanished. Her screen showed a sudden, impossible surge of energy racing back towards her ship along her own weapons beam. Her eyes widened in horror. No, cut the beam. Cut it. It was too late. The reflected energy pulse reached the Iron Regent's weapon, just as it was firing. The delicate machinery inside the giant cannon couldn't handle the sudden backflow. There was a blinding flash of light from the Iron Regent's front. Then a much bigger explosion tore through the huge ship. The entire front section, including the terrible weapon, vanished in a fireball of white and purple energy. The shockwave rocked the other enemy ships nearby. The Iron Regent, broken and burning, went dark. Its engines died. It drifted silently, a broken hulk. The terrible beam from the Iron Regent stopped instantly. The beam cutting through the Odyssey's Resolve vanished. Silence fell. Not a peaceful silence, but the shocked quiet after a huge storm. The Resolve floated, heavily damaged. Fires burned inside it. Smoke drifted from gaping holes in its hull. But it was still there. It had held. Barely. Below it, Helios Station hung in space. It was scarred and damaged, but its power core was safe. People inside were alive. On the station's control room, the old leader and the young officer Teak stared at the view screens. They saw the broken Iron Regent, saw the burning but still whole Odyssey's resolve. They saw the station saved. The silence stretched. Then slowly the old leader bowed his head. Tears filled his eyes, but they were tears of relief, not fear. Teak looked at the screen showing the station corridor where Laura Diaz had protected the children. He remembered her standing there, taking the hit. He looked at the broken ship that had shielded them all. They came, he whispered. They really came. A small shuttle, marked with the Resolve symbol, left the damaged ship. It flew slowly towards the station's main docking port. Inside, Captain Greg Olson sat. His uniform was torn and dirty. A bandage was wrapped around his head, where he had hit the console. He looked tired, but his eyes were steady. The shuttle docked. The door opened. Greg stepped out into the station corridor. He took off his helmet. He looked around at the damage, the scared faces of the thin aliens watching him from doorways. The old leader walked forward slowly, stopped a few steps away from Greg. He looked at the human captain, the Deathworlder. He saw the dirt, the bandage, the tiredness, but also the strength and the calm purpose. He remembered the ship shielding them. He remembered the soldier protecting the children. The old leader bowed deeply. It was a bow of great respect, the deepest his people knew. His voice trembled, but it was clear. You arrived, he said, when we cried for help. ... When no one else would come, Deathworlders arrived. You saved us. Thank you. Greg Olson looked at the old leader. He looked at the station around him. Saved. He looked back towards his broken ship, his crew. He thought of Laura, Ethan, all of them. They had answered the call. They had been the ones to come, and they had stood. He nodded slowly. We heard you, he said simply. And in that moment, the universe understood a little better what it meant when Deathworlders answered a cry for help.